And welcome to the latest episode of New Londinium, which is my steampunk let's play and heavily modded Minecraft. And in the last few episodes, you've seen me working on basically expanding the storage capability in the manor house, which is going to be my headquarters for the foreseeable future before we can move into the city proper. Now, I was thinking, and I think it's time. Well, I guess the best way to put it is I've been thinking about the next step, and I haven't made up my mind on it yet. So while I'm still thinking this through, I'm going to think it through out loud with you. I'm going to knock down some trees, and we'll get some more storage drawers made, and maybe do some gardening. And then by that time, I should have figured out what my next step is, and then we'll move on that. But the question at the moment, the big question is, well, even before the question, there's a backstory to the question, right? As always. We early in the series, we discovered the delightful and beautiful little village or town of Twin Spires. If you remember, I originally called it Twin Peaks, but I was afraid that there might be some copyright problems, so we call it Twin Spires. But the point is, the reason I was calling it that is that there was some very weird stuff going on there. And I think there's ample evidence that there's a cult located in that town. And so at one point we actually snuck back into town and kind of dismantled these holding cells that the cult was apparently using, presumably to, hold passersby while they do whatever it is that cultists do to passerby. So I was feeling pretty good about that, kind of a public service thing. But we're at the point now that, early on, I showed you where the full extent of New Londinium will be. And unfortunately, the town of Twin Spires is within the radius, right? So what is now currently Twin Spires will be replaced with the outskirts of New Londinium. So all that being said, the town's got to go. The question is, what do we do with the people? Now, there's cultists, right? So I think I could make a strong justification to just basically, raise the buildings and let those guys be on their way, right? Off with you. But I think by now you might have guessed, if you've been watching my videos for any length of time, I'm not that type of guy. Not normally. So what's the alternative, right? And this is the question. This is the question that I'm pondering. If I don't, destroy the buildings and turn them out to the cold, what do I do then? The obvious answer would be to move them someplace else, right? Relocate the population of the village. And I haven't fully made up my mind to do that. I am leaning pretty heavily in that direction because, look at it this way, right? It's a town. Now, I'm pretty sure that not everybody in the town is a cultist. But I have no way of knowing who is or who isn't. So instead of basically turning out a bunch of non-cultists to punish a handful of potential cultists. I think I just need to save everyone. And, yes, I'll save some cultists in the process, but who knows? I mean, I kind of busted up their operation a while ago. Maybe they've changed, right? Maybe they saw the light. Maybe they were deprogrammed or whatever it is that cultists do to recover from being a cultist. So that's the question. That's the quandary I face. Now, if I'm going to move them, the question is where. And I think I kind of have an answer for that. There is, if you remember way back, we found a village in the dark forest to the southeast of here. So I think that's the place to go, right? We can move the population of Twin Spires there. Now, this then gets into, an interesting discussion of the mechanics, right? So right off the top of my head, you can think that, well, maybe we can just start kidnapping people, grabbing them, throwing them into my pedal chopper, and then dropping them off in the village. The problem with that, though, is that the villagers have the ability to procreate. So if you just start kidnapping people, when you come back, you'll find that there's going to be a bunch of children to replace the ones you kidnapped. And so, in a way, you're kind of like sweeping a dirt floor, right? No matter how much dirt you sweep away, there's still dirt. Or in this case, no matter how many villagers you carry away, there's always more. So I was kind of thinking that what I need to do is you go in and you grab a villager and you grab a bed. And because villager mechanics are tied to the number of beds that are available, if you take a villager and a bed, then the mechanics kind of work in your favor. In other words, there is one less villager, but since there's also one less bed and you need one villager per bed, there's no reason to go and have children. So if I go this route, then that's the way you do it, is for every person you kidnap, you take a bed. Now, this then leads to the next question. What's the point of saving everybody if you're just going to, at the new village start plopping beds between houses and everything where they're going to be unprotected from the nasty stuff that can spawn in? So then we have another facet to this whole solution, which is you grab a villager, you grab a bed, but you're going to need a place to put the bed on the other end. Which I could get creative and trying to find all sorts of weird places indoors to plop beds, but I think a more reasonable approach would be to create a new building, right? Kind of like a dorm or a barracks, where we can put a bunch of beds in there, and that should support the new population when we drop them off as well. So that's my plan, right? That's my plan. I'm going to basically forcibly remove people, but we'll take their bed with us and we'll set them up nice and cozy at the destination village. And once we do all that, then we could go ahead and tear down Twin Spires at some point, as we also start removing material for New Londinium. Anyway, wow, that's probably the longest intro I've ever done, but that is what's going on, and I'm looking forward to it because, like I've explained, I have this. I imagine this thing called a momentum hump, and I think we've cleared it in this world. So now we're at the point where stuff's getting done. I now have kind of tricked out magical armor, so and a magical sword, and now we're at the point where instead of episodes going by and hardly any forward progress is being made, now each episode brings a lot of forward progress, right? Where there's new capabilities with each episode, there's new powers, there's new abilities, there's new structures. Of course, episode's still only an hour long, and if it doesn't happen on camera, it doesn't happen. So, it's not like, some other Let's Plays, which really aren't Let's Plays, they're more like showcases where somebody goes off camera and does, 10, 15, 20 hours of work and then comes back and shows you on camera what they just did. Nope. You're going to see what I do as I do it, warts and all. And believe me, there are warts to be shown, but I'm really excited about the prospect of getting started on this. It's been a long process. One of the things I still need to do, though, is finish this base, right? So this manor house is meant to be the temporary base until we can move to New Londinium. But New Londinium is a very large, very long-term project. So while I call this a temporary base, it's temporary is in quotes, right? I mean, this temporary base will be in place longer than most permanent bases will be. So there's that. And with that said, there's still a lot to be done. Which the first, the immediate concern is storage. It has been for a couple episodes now, and that's what I'm working on here. So we grabbed all that wood. Good old dark oak wood, and I'm trimming off the bark. I made sure that I had plenty anyway, because what's holding me back from using all this bark and straw is the fact that I really don't have any bone meal. Right now I'm using it to make that rich soil, and I thought I lost the barrel, but it turns out that I already had it. I just didn't see it. Anyway, that rich soil is good stuff, really good stuff, and I'd like to have it up and running in all of our farms and fields. So that's why I continue making it. I can see, if you remember what I said about leaving these drawers blank, you can see that apparently I didn't have a place to put rotten flesh or poppies. So now I know that I need to designate a place for both of these, and I'll put these poppies over here where I put these nettles, and that just be our flower section. So then let's throw this stuff in. I'm pretty sure I have all that. Oh, I guess not. I thought I had designated a place for trees, saplings, wood, but I haven't. So I think I'll go over here. It's going to be close to some of the processing tools that we'll have set up once we get our windmill going. And then down here, we can go ahead and set up a crafting table and just make a mess of drawers, which we can then place down here. So the fundamental element of the drawers is, of course, chests, and then with the chest you need a bunch of, make sure I don't have any hidden resources in here. Sometimes I have chests. Anyway, so now we just need planks, right? So chests and planks. So that's going to be 10, 20, 30 chests, and there's our 32. So, boom. Easy peasy. Rinse, lather, repeat. Or lather, rinse, repeat. There you go. I need some planks. And there you go. So, I mean, that was a phenomenal amount of dark oak wood, and you can see it doesn't last hardly any time at all. Hardly any time at all. Now, I have talked to a few people about this, and it may seem like I'm producing a ridiculous number of drawers. Appearances can be deceiving. That worked out exactly right. Perfect. Anyway, because the thing to remember is that my immediate storage needs, of course, don't even come close to the amount of drawers I've already made, much less what I plan to make. But you have to remember that this mod pack has well over 250 mods in it, and they all have their own little additions, and a lot of those are going to give me things that I need to store. And so one item type per drawer. Each of these drawers can hold a phenomenal amount of an item, but so I mean there are individual mods that give me thousands of items and blocks. I mean literally thousands of items and blocks. Now I don't use all of them, so even knowing I have a crazy number of drawers here, and I will have, it won't even come close to covering all the different items I could have in there. But then on the other side, I know I'm not going to have every possible item. So there's a happy medium in there. But in the end, it comes down to the fact that I like to over-engineer things, right? If I'm going to need a power plant and it needs to produce X power, then I'm going to produce a power plant that produces 10x power, and I have room to grow into. That's just the way I am. Always have been. So that's going to be the case here too, right? And now it's interesting because I used to think that type of thinking was odd, and therefore I was odd. But over the course of the many years that I've orbited the sun on this planet, I have come to discover that there are a lot of people who think like I do. And so if it is odd, if it has an odd way of thinking, then there are a lot of odd people like me. Or what perhaps is more likely, that way of thinking is not as odd as I think it might be. Which is good. You know, because, you know, society likes to put labels on people, and if you don't think exactly the same way as the majority of people, you're odd. But odd is just like normal, right? It's completely subjective. And so I use it only when I'm talking to others, because anymore there's not a whole lot of odd, in my opinion. There's certainly people who are different than me, but that's not to say that they're better or worse than me. Unless they're Nazi, then yeah, they're worse than me. But Nazis aside, yeah. Sorry, I just used the word Nazi out loud, and now I've got that picture in my head of that scene in Blues Brothers where the Nazis are having a protest and it's causing a big traffic jam, and the Blues Brothers are like, "Hey, what's the holdup?" And the cop tells them, you know, it's the Nazis. They're celebrating that they won their court case, and then the Blues Brothers basically run their car around the crowd and up over the bridge and through the Nazis. forcing all of them to jump over the off the bridge and into the water. And of course, whenever I think of Nazis, diving for their lives into the drink, it brings a smile to my face. So there you go. There you go. Now, also a reminder, now that we got storage, we're putting more and more of these fruits and vegetables into storage. But we're not putting them all into storage because now that we have storage, we still need that bone meal. So basically, I pay a 50% compost tax. So all the stuff that I harvest, if it's compostable, I will send 50% of it to the composter. Except these onions, they're not very done yet. And those poppies are still... Whoops. Those poppies still have a long ways to go. So we'll grab this stuff though. And you can see this this flax just grows like weeds because it's on the rich soil, just like my wheat. I use the Serene Seasons mod, and it's still early spring, so my wheat should take about like 12 years to grow. It's really slow growing in the early spring. But you saw that it was, look at this. I just harvested a few minutes ago. I already got some ready to go. So that's that rich soil. That's what that stuff's talking about. And it's pretty useful when you do manual farming. But if you're doing automated farming, that stuff's the bomb, right? Because your automation, since the stuff's ready faster, your automation will pick it up faster. Good stuff, Maynard. I think that's all the compostable bits I want to split in half. And then let's go put the rest away. But now, how long do you think it's going to take me to put all that stuff away? Seconds. And out of my backpack. Done. There you go. It's all being distributed wherever it goes. That's the beauty of the system. Meanwhile, I forgot that I'm still keeping the straw and stuff up here. That's 19 bone meal. That's not bad, considering I had 0 a minute ago. So it's coming together. I thought I might have had a stack of barrels, but I guess not. So just created a space for barrels. And I guess I've, that part's done. It's time to, it's time to decide what I'm going to do. And I think I've decided that I am going to move everybody, including the cultists, and, these towers of grass from the Biomes of Plenty mod that slow you down, also slow you down in your helio chopper. So there's that. Okay, so let's see. We need to find that village, and I would have thought that it kind of just like sticks up out of the canopy. I mean, it's not like they have tall buildings. It's just that the canopy's so thick that if you have a village, it's gonna basically block trees. So this glowing mushroom thing is part of the village. Strangely, I don't remember that. But okay, it is what it is. There it is. So let's bring this thing in. And I can definitely see the rooftops sticking out from among the trees now. So, gotta find a place to land this. More importantly, I gotta find a place to land that I could probably take off again afterwards. Excuse me. There we go. Okay. So if I'm going to essentially build like a dormitory in this town, I need to kind of figure out a good place for it. I mean, it's going to be a fairly large... Hey, get out of there. No, don't press any buttons. Yeah, we're going to have to find kind of a bit of open space, which is... I know that's a weird thing to say for a heavily forested town, but I'm kind of... what I mean is not open space, but rather big flat space, right? Because I can open it up. I got an axe, but... oh, so this is pretty cool. This is very cool. Interesting. So, I don't plan on doing any proper village building at this time, but I think when the time comes and we do redo this village, I think we should maintain that that giant glowing mushroom structure as like the center of the village. I think that's pretty cool. And definitely need to redo some of these profession skins because they don't work so well with my early 20th century steampunk skins. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to build anything fancy, right? For now, since the village is what the village is, and I'm not changing the size or, well, the nature of the village, I'm going to try to create this dormitory in kind of an architectural style and materials as the other buildings in the village. Yeah. If I'm going to basically foist a bunch of refugees onto the good folks of this town, at the very least I could do is not add a bunch of buildings that are an eyesore and don't go with what they already have. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. Of course, it's not all dark oak. There's regular oak. Now, normally you would think, oh, more dark oak, we can make more storage drawers. And maybe there might be some left over when we're done that I could use to make storage drawers. But right now, not only am I clearing away these, the thick undergrowth or overgrowth, this is also the material we're going to use to build our little dormitory, barracks, refugee shelter, whatever you want to call it. And being in the dark oak forest, it's more dangerous than many other biomes because even during periods of bright daylight, like now, there are patches of the forest dark enough to spawn bad guys. And when it gets cloudy, or actually night, it gets darker earlier so that you will tend to see more bad guys at an earlier time and for a longer time. So I'd like to get this building far enough along so that when darkness does fall, or a rainstorm, we can actually keep working from within the building we're building. You know, bad guys on the outside, good guy on the inside. Though I got to point out this whole notion of bad guys and good guys. Again, that is completely subjective point of view. So, I grew up a long time ago in a galaxy very near. But the point is I grew up during the Cold War. And the Cold War, we really hammered the idea of bad guys and good guys into everybody's heads. And I just find it interesting because, you know, I have access to a lot of former Soviet citizens. And so, you know, we can trade notes on what was going on during the Cold War years. And it's where it really kind of rams home the idea that bad and good and evil, them and us, all of these are sides to the same phenomenon. I mean, for example, during the Cold War, you know, I grew up in the United States. I was in the military during the Reagan era, right? That's a particularly red, white, and blue flag-waving era. And it was particularly focused against communism in the Soviet Union, right? And we would hear all these stories about what living in the Soviet Union was like. And don't get me wrong, some of those stories are possibly every bit as bad as they said they were, but probably most of them were exacerbated somewhat, and some of them are even made up. But then we used all of that to justify how they were, quote unquote, the bad guys, and we were, quote unquote, the good guys. Now, in recent years, I don't think there are nearly as many people who would think of the Americans as the good guys, but that's not where I'm headed with this. Where I'm headed with this is, even as we were, beating our chests and saying we're the good guys and, make the world safe against the Soviet threat, from the Soviet point of view, even without their propaganda, right, they felt like they were the good guys and we were the bad guys. And quite frankly, I think both sides are right. Or if both sides aren't right, then both sides are wrong, right? Because that's kind of how this works. The idea of bad guy, good guy is completely based on your point of view. So, and I know that there's going to be a lot of people, especially on the American side, that will point to different things that the Soviet government did that were definitely bad. But I would also like to point out that there's a lot of stuff the American government did, especially through the CIA, that wasn't necessarily all that cool. And we were theoretically the good guys, right? And that's really what it kind of boils down to. And there are exceptions. I mentioned Nazis earlier in this episode, and I think that 99.9% of the people that will ever hear this would agree that Nazis were the bad guys. And, that's something we could all agree to. And quite frankly, if you don't think the Nazis were the bad guys, I doubt you're watching Minecraft videos. Really doubt you're watching my Minecraft videos. So, there you go. But, yeah. That's why I liked stories where the bad guys are sometimes good, the good guys are sometimes bad, because those types of stories, those types of plot lines show depth in storytelling and character development, and that all leads to interesting stories. Case in point, if you ever read the Xanth series, right, in the first book, there's that general, that horrible, evil general that's wreaking havoc on the land, and he's coming, and everybody's scared to death of what this general's going to do to everybody. But it turns out the general's actually a good guy. He is, but his enemies have spun all these stories about him that they're blatantly not true. But unless you know the general, you don't know they're not true. And so that was the point, right? Is that these people were getting all worked up about what this general was going to do, when in fact what they were getting worked up on was a bunch of made up stuff that had no bearing on what the actual general was like or what he really wanted to do. And now that I say it, it's interesting because I think that has a little bit of bearing on what's going on, certainly in the United States, but even to a certain extent to the rest of the world as well. But the United States is particularly wrapped up in that, and on both sides of the political spectrum. So, though obviously one side is more problematic than the other, but yep. Anyway, won't go there. I mean, already went there, but we'll walk it back. Might take the bus though. So I'm kind of thinking that now that we've improved this roadway here, I think if worse comes to worse, we could actually use this roadway as a short runway. It always cracks me up when that happens too. You hear about some plane in trouble. Not a big commercial airliner, usually, some little prop-driven jobber, but, plane's in trouble. And the pilot puts it down on a road someplace. So you got to imagine that here you are, you're driving your car on a road, because that's where we tend to drive our cars. And, just doing your thing. I mean, normally you got to be very alert on the road because there's all sorts of crazy drivers and obstacles. But a landing plane is almost certainly not on the list, right? I mean, apparently it is on the list. But if you were to make a list of saying the things I'm likely to see on my road trip today, or for example, like when I was a kid, we used to have these like road trip bingo cards, right? So yeah, so they had these bingo cards, and as Dad drove the car. If you saw one of these things outside the window, you can mark it off on your bingo card, and whoever filled a row won, right? And they would show things like farms and motorcycles and police cars, and so there you go. So I'm pretty sure on none of those bingo cards would you have ever seen a landing plane on the roadway. You might have seen an airport. Yeah, I guess you might have seen a plane, but I can guarantee you the intention would not have been that the plane's landing on the same road you're driving on. And but it happens. It happens. Always a little bit of excitement. Interesting stuff. It's interesting how when you're a kid, road trips and the things you see on a road trip can really lead to some strong memories and thoughts, right? I mean, when I was a kid, my dad drove a lot, did a lot of traveling. I had to spend a lot of time with my dad, spend a lot of time in the car with my dad, and there wasn't really quality time with him, but from within the car, I spent a lot of time looking at the world and seeing the world go by, and wondering about stuff and seeing stuff. In fact, one of the things I'm reminded of is I remember watching the biopic, The Doors, right? That's the one where Val Kilmer plays Jim Morrison. And look at how they built this house, so I can use it over here too. Okay, so rain's falling, so it is potential hostile mob time. Anyway, so I was watching the biopic of The Doors. I need to get these to be the same so that the door is in the middle. There it goes. And apparently, when Jim Morrison was a kid, his family did a road trip through the Mojave Desert. and there had been an accident where apparently a person had died, and that really impacted his thoughts, and that memory really stuck with him. In fact, what song was it? I think it's Riders on the Storm is the song that was largely inspired by the experience and the thoughts that came from the experience. So of course, doing my YouTube analytics and looking at the audience, I doubt anybody who's watching this has any idea what I'm talking about. But if you happen to know, if you know Jim Morrison, The Doors, and that stuff, just think about that next time you hear Riders on the Storm. Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, I still have memories about those days. Like, for example, growing up, I think I've said this before, my mom was real big into music. And she was born in 48, but when she was a kid, of course, that was the 50s. And then in the 60s, she came of age. And so that's the music that she really bonded to. And when I was a kid, she would get these anthology 8-track cassette tapes. And if you have no idea what an 8-track is, again, I'm dating myself, but and she would, she was a stay-at-home mom in those years, and so she would bebop around the house listening to those things all the time. So that's what I grew up on. That I heard that stuff over and over. But where I was headed with this is, my mom would get those 8-tracks because they were anthologies and they had pretty much all the music she liked, but also it had a lot of music she didn't like. But, and it's their 8-tracks, so, your ability to fast forward and rewind, it was pretty limited. So, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that for years, right? So I grew up listening to all that stuff from the entire era. So I'm listening. I mean, my mom liked the Beach Boys, but my mom didn't like Motown. But I heard a mess of Motown from those anthologies. So I grew up loving Motown. I still love them today and stuff. And so going back to this whole road trip memory thing, there are, back then you didn't have the sound systems or on-demand streaming music or anything like that. You basically turned on the radio, and what was playing on the radio was what was playing on the radio. And so there's a lot of songs from the early 70s that I heard while on these road trips that I really liked, and they make me happy today. I mean, if I hear tie a little ribbon around the old oak tree from Tony, Orlando, and Dawn, or Cher's single, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, or Paul McCartney and Wings singing Band on the Run. If I hear any of those songs, man, I cannot get this thing. Okay. If I hear one of those songs, I'm immediately transported to, sitting between my parents on the front bench seat of the car, and it's like 1972 or 73 all over again. So this is what I'm saying, right? Is these road trips and the music especially, but the road trips in general and the things you see on them, they can really produce some really powerful memories. Yep. Another thing that kind of triggers. Yep. Let's help them. Let's not help them. Okay, good job. I just came to make sure you got everything. No pieces were left over. Oh gosh. Another thing is in 1970, we moved to Ontario, California, which is due east of LA by about 30 miles. And so, you know, I grew up in that area. I very much know what it was like to grow up in Southern California, because the experience in Ontario was actually pretty similar to like LA and the cities around LA and stuff. In fact, my cousins, on my mom's side, they usually lived in or around LA, so we would visit there quite frequently. And so then when I watch a show nowadays, like say Adam 12, and I love watching Adam 12, it's just like I told you, I like watching shows over and over. That's one of them. But when I watch Adam 12, even though a good chunk of it is definitely filmed on a studio lot, a lot of it was filmed on the city streets of LA. And you can go to those places today and they don't look anything like they did in the show. But I got to tell you, when I look at those shows today, those episodes, it takes me, I can smell the air. And yes, if you grew up in Southern California in the 70s, you know the smell I'm talking about, right? The pollution smell. You can even see it in those episodes, right? When you see the show, it's a sunny day and people are walking, but when the camera pans out, you know, you don't see like much in the distance, because the pollution basically prevents you from seeing very far past whatever you're looking at. And of course, the sky is kind of a perpetually light tan, right? So and all of that sounds bad, and I guess it is, but you know, because it was part of my it is part of my childhood memories, I think upon that time and those sights and smells with great fondness. So there's an Enderman somewhere around here, which is no big deal, but I just realized that it's way dark out there. Bad guys everywhere. Or there will be. So that should take care of it. Anyway. So I'm thinking, again, think about the show. You can see... Okay, I can help with this one. Excuse me. There you go. Gotcha. Whoa! A buddy. Tag team. Excellent. Whoa! 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 Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Good job, gentlemen. Press on. As you were. So, like I was saying, so if you watch a show that they filmed in like the early mid-70s, like around LA. Wow. So it sounds like somebody found a creeper. Let's see if we can find the new hot tub they just dug. It sounded fairly close. This isn't it. This was already here. I don't know. So, but as I was saying, you know, when you watch those films, what you'll see is LA, but you'll see that back in those days, even in those days, there's still like a lot of open land to be found, right? You know, like farms or just open space. I mean, if you go there now, there is not a lot of open space in Los Angeles County or San Bernardino County until you get to the mountains, right? It's pretty well filled in with all sorts of housing developments and commercial districts and stuff. But back then, you know, I'm watching a show. Back then, I watched it because it just was the show. But now when I watch it, you know, it's been 40 or 50 years. And so when I'm watching it now, I'm watching it with the knowledge of everything that's come later. And it's, you know, it's shocking me what I'm seeing there. But if you think that's wild, and it is, right? It's just, it's amazing what you see. You should watch some of the old shorts from like the Hal Roach Studios and Max Sennett Studios from the 20s and 30s, because they were essentially filmed in the same area. So, but the thing is, they were filmed in the 20s and the 30s, right? So like even 40 or 50 years before what I just described. And the transformation or the difference between the LA of today and the LA of that time is even greater. I mean, it's amazing, right? Because you think of places like El Monte and La Brea, and you think about these. Well, Toluca Lake is a perfect example. There's an Our Gang comedy that takes place on Toluca Lake, and Toluca Lake in the episode, Toluca Lake appears to be a lake out in the middle of freaking nowhere. I mean, it's still heavily wooded and kind of park-like now, but it's not in the middle of nowhere. And I remember, I think it's Laurel and Hardy, the Piano Movers, right? That house, I mean, they're trying to load this piano up this big set of stairs to this house, but if you look, that house is kind of out in the middle of a big open space, right? It's if I'm thinking of the right scene in my head, I mean, it's been decades since I watched it, but you cannot imagine that you're looking at any place within Los Angeles County, but you are. Just amazing. Just amazing. So I think I touched upon this a while back, because I had a similar situation where back in the early 20th century, they found oil in Southern California, and so all around Los Angeles, but especially around Long Beach, you had oil wells, right? I mean, actual oil wells, and not just an oil well here or there. I even posted a picture of Long Beach, like in the 20s. There's hundreds of oil wells there. And strangely enough, there is still a chunk of oil, a lot of oil in that area today. It's just like the real estate prices have gone through the roof. Even though oil prices continue to rise, as high as they are, it is so much more cost effective to have that land developed as businesses and residences in this day and age than it is to pump oil out of them, which tells you how expensive that real estate's become. But it's wild to see a picture of Long Beach in the 20s or 30s, and there are literally 30, 40, 50, 100 oil wells in frame, right? And people at the beach go, "Ooh, this is fun." It's like, wow. And again, growing up during the environmental movement, the idea of oil wells on the beach just blows my mind, right? It's kind of like swimming in the swimming hole where the chemical plants dumping toxic chemicals into it. It's just like, what? That's kind of the way things were back then. I mean, I think what really kicked off the environmental movement, and I'll get details, and I'll post them on the page for the episode on my website. But there was a number of incidents in the early 70s that basically got people thinking that, hey, we need to do something about the environment, because like at that point, you manufacturing something and you're producing some noxious waste. It's liquid. Dump it in the sewer. Goes out to, and the sewer, and I put sewer in quotes, basically was a pipe that ran to the local river. And I remember there was a river in Ohio that the river had caught fire. Now, just think about what I just said. The water in the river caught fire. Well, not the water. It's just that they were dumping all these chemicals into the river. The chemicals float on the water. So it's exposed, it's ready to go, and at some point something ignited the chemicals. You can't put a river out, right? I mean, how do you extinguish a river? And in this case, it happened a few times, but one time it got really bad, and it just happened to get a lot of national press. And the public outcry was big enough that that's essentially when the environmental movement really got started. But let's face it, right? I mean, what we're talking about is a river that is so heavily polluted. And of course, yeah, the fish had died and everything. But the river was so heavily polluted that a passing train that was generating sparks from its wheels on the track ignited the chemicals on the river, and that's why the river was burning, right? And generally people like building near rivers and lakes, but not if they catch on fire. So, think about that. So it was a very different time and place, and I think we've learned a lot since then. We've done a lot to improve things. Going back to the pollution problem in LA, right? I mean, when I was a kid, boy, so to this day I still have asthma. I mean, I grew up in a house full of chain smokers. I mean, it was the 70s, so pretty much everybody was a smoker. It just mattered how much they smoked. And on top of that, I lived in the greater LA area where you could chew the air. And I'm not kidding on that. I mean, I remember we had smog alerts. Days that were so smoggy, they told people, just stay indoors. Don't go outside. We even didn't run PE, right? Or not even recess. They just told us stay indoors. And I remember some days were so bad. I mean, I lived 2 doors from the school, right? So it was our house, 2 neighbor houses, and then the school. And I remember the smog would get so bad that on my way home, when I got to my second neighbor's house, so now I'm technically 1.5 houses away from the school, I couldn't see the fence to the school anymore. The smog was that bad. And so, I grew up with a lot of lung problems and stuff, right? And I moved out of California in 95 or 96. And by then, they had really started clamping down on pollution and put all these laws in effect to try to make things better. I didn't realize how, but then I was gone, right? So I wasn't there to watch it or see it. And then I remember one year we went back to LA so that we could go visit Eric and do the Disneyland thing on Spring Farm. And we came in and I was floored. I mean, Eric was living in Santa Monica, and he had this really nice house that he lived, it was a condo, but he lived on the top floor of the condo complex. And from his condo, it was on the corner, we could see south and we could see east. And we could see a long way. I couldn't remember ever seeing that far when I lived in Southern California, except for a few days at the beach, right? Because the ocean breezes would blow a lot of crud inland. So you could get some pretty good, decent visibility on the beach, but never remember seeing that type of visibility in LA. So, and of course, in theory, things have gotten better since. We haven't been to Southern California for a few years. I don't think we've been since before the pandemic. So, and that's a story in a lot of parts of the country, right? The environment is much better than it was. Now, it doesn't mean that we're done. But, yeah. And, there's a lot of these places where before you couldn't go fishing or hunting because, there probably wasn't any animals there. And if there were animals there, you didn't want to eat what you caught because of all the toxins that they probably ingested. And that seems to be, it's still a thing, but it's becoming less of a thing. I mean, nowadays, like up at here, when they tell you don't eat the shellfish, it's pretty rare that it's from pollution. I mean, if it is from pollution, it's because we had a massive amount of rain and all the runoff has kind of overflowed the sewers, and the sewers washed out to sea. So then it's like, yeah, don't eat shellfish for a month. But most of the time when they see those warnings, it has nothing to do with what we put in the water and everything to do with the fact that there's some type of like algal bloom, right? Because not all algae is green or friendly. There's some algae out there that's some pretty bad news, right? It'll make you sick if you get exposed to it. So who would have thunk, right? Anyway. Just trying to keep their motif here. They use a lot of dark oak planks for everything, which is probably a bit overkill in my book. There's not enough contrast. I mean, it makes it easy to build, so I'm not going to complain about it. And this is all stuff I could I could reuse or repurpose later, but you know, the compare and contrast, between Southern California and Washington State. I was recently talking to somebody about that, right? They're somebody who grew up in Southern California with me, but they've never even been to the Pacific Northwest. So we were talking about some of the stuff. And in Southern California, especially on nice days, right? Like hot summer days, you better get your butt down to the beach by like 8 in the morning, because that's the only way you're going to find parking, right? And what's more, it's the only way you're going to find a decent spot on the beach, because by 10 or 11, the parking lot's full, and like almost every square foot of the beach, if it doesn't have an active wave on it, it's got somebody with a blanket staked out, right? It's a phenomenal number of people. And I think that's kind of like when I stopped enjoying going to the beach, because it's just is too many people, right? And I didn't enjoy that. But now in the Pacific Northwest, we have beaches too. And sometimes they're crowded, but even when the beaches here get quote unquote crowded, it's a fraction of what crowded means in Southern California. Yeah, I'm trying to make these planks go further by using slabs, but the slabs are kind of tricky to lay down here because of the advanced placements mod I have. Anyway, I remember we were one of our earliest road trips down the Washington coast. I mean, my wife and I had been married for less than a year, and you know, if you take that highway, actually there's a few highways, but they hug the coast, right? So you can drive down the highway, and you know, you see the beaches. And it blew my mind how on a July day we could be driving down the road. Oops, I think I missed a whole row here. Yeah, it's me just gabbing. Yeah, I'll go get it. Anyway, so we're just driving down the road. There's a beach. And it blew me away because, you know, first of all, if you know anything about beaches or the ocean, it has tides, right? So when people are running around on the beach, they leave footprints and, you know, mess up all the sand and stuff. And then high tide comes in, right? So the water reaches further up on the land than it did before. And it kind of smooths away all those footprints and stuff, leaving a nice pristine beach where then the water recedes, tide goes out, and then the process repeats. Everybody's out running around the beach, leaving footprints and stuff. And what blew me away is, as we're in Washington State, we're driving down the highway, there is this beautiful beach. There's one car in the parking lot, and you look at the beach, and it looks like it was like just freshly made by the hand of God, I guess. It was beautiful, it was pristine, and there was only one set of footprints on the entire beach, which normally it'd be kind of hard to spot, except the fact that since it was the only set of footprints over the pristine beach, it kind of stuck out even as we're driving down the road at highway speed. It was just amazing, right? That's Washington State for you. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that, because first of all, in science, you have this thing called the Coriolis effect, right? And we won't go into all that, but the bottom line is the Coriolis effect is based on the Earth spinning, and because of that, there are some things that happen on Earth a certain way. For example, if you go to flush your toilet, watch it. The toilet's not designed to flush clockwise or counterclockwise. It just flushes. But because of the Coriolis effect, if you were in the northern hemisphere, it will flush clockwise. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, it will flush counterclockwise. And you see the same thing in a much bigger effect with the currents of the oceans, right? So the oceans in the northern hemisphere flow in a circular clockwise direction, and southern hemisphere circular counterclockwise direction. Now, where that matters in all this, when I'm talking about beaches, is on the east coast of the United States. We're talking about clockwise, right? So the water that is, like, say, washing up on Long Island beaches or New Jersey beaches or anywhere up there, that water, it has come up from the Caribbean. It's warm. It came up from the Caribbean and Florida, went up past Georgia and the Carolinas, and it's pretty warm, right? So even when you're up there in the New York State area, which is pretty far north, that water's warm. Very comfortable. Now on the West Coast, the water's still flowing clockwise, but the West Coast is different because our water's not coming from the south, our water's coming from the north. So one of the reasons why Washington beaches have a tendency to be so pristine is because our water's coming from Alaska. And even in the summer, Alaska water is not warm. And by the time our water gets down to Southern California, it's still kind of chilly, right? It's still kind of chilly. It is not the same, so Southern California and Georgia, I think, are like on roughly the same latitude. And yet, Georgia beaches, Georgia water temperature, noticeably different and higher than California beaches. So there is that. So the house is pretty much done. Let's just get rid of this extra dirt. And anyhow, I don't even know how or why I got on that big tangent, but there it is, right? So let's see if we can get out of here. Hey, told you, don't press the buttons. I think your mom's looking for you. Okay, let's see. Hey, you broke it. You break it, you buy it. Okay, let's see if I can get out of here. And, whoa! I'm stuck on something. Danger, danger! Will Robinson, mayday, mayday! How can I... Whoa. Okay. I was stuck on a villager, apparently. And he kind of broke my machine. Okay, so there's our little longhouse. That's where we'll be housing our refugees. And you can see it's just not quite a stone's throw, but a stone's throw from our base. So that's good. So we got some more storage done. We got some farming done. We now have a place to store refugees. So I think in future episodes, I left a crafting table up here. So let's do a crafting table extraction. So in future episodes, other than looking for misplaced workstations, I will we'll continue work on the manor house, right? Keep getting that more capable and ready. But we'll start kidnapping, for lack of a better term, people in Twin Spires and relocating them to their new home in the other village, which I'm sure I've named, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. Because up to now, it wasn't important, but now it's of growing importance. So with all that said, I hope you got something out of this episode. I thank you for joining me and keeping up with me, at least to this point. And I hope you come back next episode for the next installment of this saga. But in the meantime, I hope this finds you and yours in good health, good spirits, and perhaps a touch of good fortune. Cheers.